Hey, welcome along. We had a live Q&A for Mark Steyn Club members around the planet over at Steyn Online the other day, and I thought it'd be like when I was a teenager in radio and we used to do open line phone-ins, and I'd sit there twiddling my thumbs for the first 40 minutes, desperate for the first call to come through. But in fact, we were swamped by questions from every time zone around the globe, and I could only get to a couple of dozen of them, so I thought I'd pick out some for this special edition of Mark's Mailbox, brought to you courtesy of Mark Steyn Club members with interesting questions on diverse matters. And the first is from Jerry Neary, who asks, how can we encourage Republicans to develop a backbone? They have none, even while they are in power. Well, as you know, the excuse for Republicans throughout the Obama years was that initially they didn't control anything, and then they controlled the House and the Senate, but they couldn't do anything until they controlled the White House. They now control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House, they have a majority on the Supreme Court, and they're still explaining why things can't be done. I don't know about you, but I generally loathe people who explain to you why things can't be done. It's an increasing feature of modern life, I find. If you have a problem with your health insurance and you call the number you're meant to call, 1-800-GET-LOST, and they explain to you why things can't be done. And it is dispiriting when Republicans in Congress do that too. They're full of explanations as to why they can't do tax reform, why they can't put money for the border wall in the budget, why they can't repeal and replace Obamacare. They're brilliant at explaining why things can't be done. But this was a change election. And it's very dangerous to tell people to modify President Obama's words, that elections don't have consequences, that sometimes the people can vote for something and win the election and nothing changes. And that's what the Republicans in Congress are in danger of doing right at the moment. And as I said, it actually is a very dangerous thing to tell people that voting is a waste of time because things are just going to chug along as they always have, regardless of who you vote for. And I said on Stuart Varney's show on Fox Business the other day that I thought we lived in a curious situation at the moment. America has a tightly defined constitution with the powers allocated hither and yon, and yet certain things seem to have been completely inverted. We have a legislative branch and we have a judicial branch. Right now, the judicial branch is spending a lot of its time legislating, so that we have the absurdity of district court judges legislating immigration policy. That's preposterous. At the same time, we have the legislative body explaining that while it can't actually do any legislating, it's got a lot of time for pseudo-judicial courtroom hearings, as on Trump and Russia and all the rest of it. So on the one hand, it says, oh, there's no possibility. We can't possibly do tax reform before the 2018 elections. Absolutely no way we could do that. And it'd be absurd even to try. But at the same time, if some under-assistant, deputy assistant, under-director of the FBI discovers some memo, allegedly, from some associate of Trump that is something to do with some guy who once worked for Aeroflot in the 1970s, Congress can drop everything and schedule 3 days of hearings in order to interrogate that guy. Both these things, one of these things is deeply damaging to representative government. That's judges legislating immigration policy. And the other is just a complete waste of time. The whole setup of Congress at the moment is a giant rear view mirror where they're investigating stuff that happened 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years ago. But they don't actually address what's to come. They don't legislate what's to come. And that needs to change because it's unhealthy. And it's, as I said, it's also dangerous. We have a question from Scott, and Scott is related. He says, what are Trump's chances of political survival? Well, he's in a strange situation here because he's a president who's actually fighting against both political parties. The Democrats want to destroy him, and the Republicans in Congress, whether or not they want to destroy him, a big bunch of them aren't too keen on seeing his agenda actually fulfilled. And it's to them that the most important part of this question should be addressed. Because if they sit back as the Democrats destroy the Trump presidency, in other words, by turning it from day one into unceasing investigations, essentially years-long fishing expeditions, which is what this Russia thing is, on the chance that you'll come up with something that is going to damage and destroy him. And in the meantime, by the way, it works like every other American legal proceeding where the process is the punishment. If the Republicans in Congress sit back and let the Democrats destroy this presidency, no Republican president will ever matter again, because we will have been taught the lesson, and the Democrats in particular will have learned the lesson, that when Democrats are in power, it's consequential. They do things. They change things. Things fall their way, whether you're talking about same-sex marriage or whether you're talking about Obamacare. And then when Republicans come in, their presidencies fail from day one. And sure, they may still get to sit in the chair for a while, but to use a line I use a lot, they're in office but not in power. And if Republicans think they can confine that lesson just to a president that they're not quite on the same page with, because Trump is essentially an independent president, as it were. He's not really a president of either party. But that's not how Democrats see it. Democrats will see this as a lesson that they will apply to all Republican presidents moving forward, assuming there are any, which would be quite a big assumption if congressional Republicans were to let this presidency be destroyed. That's on them. That's on them. There's no role here for just sitting on the sidelines. What's going on at the moment is unprecedented. What's happening is that the Democrats have decided they did not accept the result of the November election, and that therefore this is not a legitimate president, and that therefore what is legitimate is to destroy the presidency. And that's pretty far deep into banana republic territory, whatever you make of Trump. He won the election according to the rules. He should be allowed to get on with governing, and his party in Congress should be there to assist him in governing and not tepidly going along with Democrat plans to destroy him. Paul says, time for conservatives to give up on fighting universal health care. Well, we do have universal health care, effectively. You can't be denied health insurance if you have a pre-existing condition, which means that whatever you call that, it isn't insurance anymore. If you can fall off the roof and tell the ambulance to swing by the insurance agency on the way to the hospital and pick up an insurance plan, whatever that is, it isn't insurance. So we have a weird system at the moment. Most countries have most Western nations have a genuinely private health system and a genuinely public health system. So if you don't want to pay for the genuinely private one, you can go to the crappy public health system. And yeah, the hospitals are all a bit Victorian and dingy, and you'll have to wait in agony a bit longer for your operation. But for most people, the lousy public healthcare system has two great advantages. It's cheap and it's simple. And as long as I said, you fall into the realm of the average person's health problems, it's kind of broadly good enough for most of your needs. At the moment, we have neither a private system nor a public system in America. We have all the worst aspects of both. We have something that has all the government coercion and regulation of a public system and all the cost of a private system. In fact, absolutely ridiculous costs that bear no resemblance to your actuarial likelihood of getting any of these diseases. that you might be worried about. So whatever we have at the moment, it isn't a private system and it isn't a public system. It's a god-awful system. And we need to start actually thinking about this in more creative ways. And I well understand that many Conservatives have a philosophical objection to universal government health care because they're principled small government Conservatives. But what the hell is small government about the government telling you that if you're in business, if you happen to be, as I am, in the media business, or if you happen to be running a feed store or a chain of feed stores, if you happen to have a group of small accountancy firms, that as well as being in the feed store or the accountancy or the media business, you also have to be in the healthcare business. What's small government about making businesses provide healthcare not only for their employees, but also for their employees' families? I mean, God, I'm as arrogant and uncaring and cold-hearted a Dickensian boss as ever walked the earth. I don't even know the name of my employees' kids. Why the hell should I care whether they break a leg or they get a hernia or whatever the hell it is? Why do I have to be in that business? What is small government? What is the principled small government position in requiring employers to also be in the healthcare business? We've got a great rusting hulk of piecemeal fixes that has resulted in one of the most expensive systems of providing healthcare anywhere. And we ought to rethink that. And if the price of having a lousy, dingy, VA-style, although hopefully less murderous, but broadly VA-style level of public provision, and reintroducing genuine private health care to the United States, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that's a trade-off worth making. And whatever else may be said, it could not be less popular than the Ryan Care bill that recently passed the House. Shauna, that's one of my favourite names. There's not enough Shaunas in the world. I like that name. Anyway, this particular Shauna, lovely name. Shauna, she writes, "Hi Mark, I really like the theme music to the Mark Steyn Show. Is there some way to get a recording of the song or anything else the bank might have to offer to add to my music playlist? I love your insight, humour and accent. Thanks for doing what you do." The accent is hell to keep up, Shauna. You don't know what it's like. That's why we don't run these items for very long, because by the time we get to about 25 minutes, I really can't keep the accent up anymore. The theme music for the Mark Steyn Show, it is on record. It's actually a song I wrote with Kevin Amos. And it's called 9 Lives, and you can get it on record, but the drawback is that I'm singing the lyric. So if you'd rather have the non-vocal version, the super cool instrumental version that the house band plays on the Mark Steyn Show, we are, and I agree with you, that Eric and the guys are great on that. They really got into that tune, and after a couple of weeks, it's like they were really cooking on that thing. We are going to put it we are doing a CD of the best music from the Mark Steyn Show and a DVD of the best music from the Mark Steyn Show. And we will try to have some crackerjack performances of the intro and outro theme played by the band to open and close the CD and DVD. But it's a song called 9 Lives, and it is there on my Feline Groovy album. From Chicago, Jenny writes, "Speaking of civilizational decline, I've spent the last decade plus watching the slow rot of my children's schools as they've migrated from the relatively benign Rainbow of Friends curriculum some 15 years ago to what is now a quite poisonous incursion of dogma on every level and into every nook and cranny of school life, including discussion of race and white privilege in physics. No lie. I've seen this before and recognized the low rumble of the social justice Trojan horse as it was wheeled up to the back door. We had escaped one social justice crevasse only to find ourselves in another. Now I seem to be the lone spokesparent to convey the importance of free speech to people who should know better. As a free speech warrior, what advice would you have for parents and students facing this? Well, you have to do exactly what you're doing, Jenny, and push back against this at every point when it starts in kindergarten. Because the assumption of our education system is that the default setting of the societal level is not just liberal, but actually extreme leftists in its views on identity politics, for example, and actually in its views on the role of parents in life. So you have to push back against the social engineering. This is where your kids spend their days. And it's important the people that they spend 6 or 7 hours a day with, if they come back all tuckered out and then they do their homework and you watch 20 minutes of TV with them and then they go to bed and spend another 6 or 7 hours with these hardcore social engineers. I think you're right that it's the intrusion of dogma into every single nook and cranny of education, to the point where it's not about education. It's about teaching children what they regard as the correct attitudes to life. And the right in particular was completely stupid to abandon this field and cede it to the left. Education is a great force in the world. If you're wondering why, for example, every time you call customer service, you come through to Sanjay or Rajiv in Bangalore, it's because back in the 19th century, Lord Macaulay wrote his famous memorandum on Indian education, where he decided that the best thing that Mother England could do for its subjects in the Indian subcontinent was to give them the benefits of the same education that an Englishman enjoyed, about the glories of Greece and Rome, right up through Shakespeare and Milton and everything. And that's why India has an educated population, and they're solving your tech support query on the phone right now. And you can imagine the kind of educated populace they'd be if they were taught by the people currently running American grade schools and too many other grade schools in the Western world. This is the biggest structural deformity in American and Western life at the moment, the education system. It essentially has taught 2 generations to have complete contempt for the most glorious inheritance in the history of the planet. And you should push back against it because it's wicked. And it leaves children, as we see from these inarticulate snowflakes rampaging around Berkeley, unable to do anything except smash and burn because their critical thinking skills, notwithstanding the fact that they're in grade 27 or whatever it is by now, are so undernourished. You should fight it at every point that it resists, that it emerges. You should resist it at every point, in school board meetings, in parent-teacher meetings, and all the rest. And I know that's difficult to do. I know that's difficult to do, but it'll be a lot more difficult living with the consequences of ceding this terrain for another generation or so. And, okay, should we have a final one? Okay, this is from the great Toronto blogger Kathy Shadle, who says, is Gypsy the greatest musical or Oliver? This arises from my interview with Joe Bob Briggs, the drive-in movie guy. He interviewed me for the Australian magazine Quadrant. And somewhere along the way it arose that Gypsy was the greatest Broadway musical of all time. And Kathy asks, is Gypsy the greatest musical or Oliver? Oliver, I knew Lionel Bart, the writer of Oliver, very well. He was a good friend of mine, and he was a sort of self-taught composer. He basically used to hum his tunes, and someone wrote them down. And they're all, as I think of them, they're what Americans call suspenders, but what the British would call thumbs in braces songs. They're all consider yourself, Adam, consider yourself a part of the furniture. You need to be a little Dickensian urchin with your thumbs in your braces. With that, actually, Monica Lewinsky starred in that musical in high school. And I believe when she was having a fling with the drama teacher before she took up with that fella in the White House. And Monica, as it happens, considered herself at home in the Oval Office, whereas Bill Clinton considered herself part of the furniture. Anyway, Oliver isn't in the same class as Gypsy. In fact, the composer of Gypsy said that Annie, while we're talking about orphans, that Annie was Oliver. Julie Stein, the composer of Gypsy, dismissed Annie as Oliver in drag. But anyway, I will go with Gypsy on that one. I'm not like Monica Lewinsky. I'm not in the lighting booth having a bit of slap and tickle, as they say, with the high school drama teacher. Actually, the funniest thing in the Star Report, this is like old Monica Lewinsky material. I've completely forgotten about Oliver. But at one point, Monica, after she's an intern in the White House, goes back to see her high school drama teacher in Oregon. And Bill Clinton is furious. He's in a rager. That guy is, it's in the Star Report. He's going, that guy is such a jerk. Why do you have to go back and see him? This is the President of the United States. And he is jealous of a high school drama teacher in Oregon who cast Monica Lewinsky in Oliver. Say what you like about the Trump administration, but President Trump, for all his obsessions, is not hung up about some high school drama teacher in Oregon thinking that he's going to get his way if he casts a particular young, comely lady in Oliver. And on that note, consider yourself at home, consider yourself part of the furniture, and we'll see you next time.